Hey, podcast family. Today we're talking about how to be a positive influence for people's lives. And if you're coming from a good place, if you're coming from a place that you want to do good out there in the world, or even just in the communities that you're connected to, being a plus, not a minus, you know this well, it takes intentionality. We got to be intentional with how we're a positive influence in other people's lives. So we'll talk about that. I'll give you some recaps on some things I've been learning and a quick action step at the end. So thanks for joining us. A quick word from today's sponsor. Hey, so let me tell you a little bit about Anchor Podcast and what it does. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain why. Number one, it's free. Number two, there's actually tools that allow you to record it right from your phone and computer, and you can edit it and everything right there. Super easy. The next thing is that Anchor will help distribute your podcast over Spotify and Apple Podcasts and many other different platforms that you can be heard on. The next thing is that if you're looking to make any kind of income, Anchor can help you with that too. So it's really everything that you need in a podcast all in one place. So wherever you get your apps from, download Anchor Podcasts. And once you get things started, let me know and I'll listen in and see what you're sharing too. Thanks, guys. All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk about this very interesting topic about being a person of positive influence. And I think it's super interesting because you think it just be something like just think good thoughts and just do good deeds kind of example. But what about the people that have a good heart or maybe want to do something good but never do? Like thoughts are the beginning of everything, but if everything kind of just stays at a thought, then nothing really happens, right? We can have good intention, but at the same time, if we don't execute on it, if we don't do anything about it, there really isn't a result, right? There's not a real thing. Like we can think of a good situation, but if we don't do anything, no one actually experiences that situation. So that's the idea. That's the bridge, if you want to say, where we have to kind of be more intentional with building that bridge in our life. It's not just thinking about good stuff or maybe even posting it, which is kind of the defeat in today's world, right? I'm a fan of social media and I'm a fan of the internet and all that stuff, but at the same time, if we're honest, sometimes by posting something, we feel like we're actually doing something. Like, say, if we put a post about a positive, quote or a positive scripture or just something, right? We put it out there and we feel, in a sense, like we can check that off the box, like we're actually doing that. But we got to question ourselves. We got to see, okay, am I really living it out? Am I really going ahead and practicing what I post? The famous saying, right? Like practice what you preach, right? But what about what do we practice what we post? Because at the end of the day, if we don't practice what we post, then we really should, right? Because most people will learn by our actions, by our example, by how we live life, not just how we talk about it. So if we really want to, if you're a person that really wants to make a lasting impact in this world, or maybe even just in your family, like sometimes, what's the quote? Like, if you want to change the world, love your family, right? Like, so sometimes it gets really big and you're like, want to change the world, want to do big stuff, want to build a company or business, and that's all great and everything else. But if we're not doing it right where we're at, right where you're planted today, right where you are with the people that you interact with today, if we're not being intentional by being a positive influence in their life, then we're missing the mark. That's where we start. That's where everything starts, right there. It starts at home. It starts where your feet are planted, wherever you are. So this topic about being and influence, a positive influence in people's lives, and it's a great leadership component. And we just went ahead and did a quick webinar covering some awesome content that John Maxwell kind of puts together. I'm also a John Maxwell coach, so I'm certified to kind of guide people through that process with masterminds and everything else. But today, I'm kind of taking some stuff I learned from his great content, and then some life experiences and some actually real life situations that I'm working with some people right now in the coaching world and in the leadership development environment. And we're just focusing on being a person of positive influence. And I'm going to cover 2 points. One is kind of I guess if you want to say a mindset or maybe a kind of like a thinking, right? Like it's a strategy. And the next one is implementation, like how we actually take action on that strategy, on that mindset. So the mindset you want to start from is, first and foremost, realizing that any room you walk into, any environment that we walk into, we are either in one area, and there's different levels if you get into like the details of leadership and everything else. But just for today, just for this podcast, we're going to make it really simple. If you're familiar with the leadership 360 concept, in any form of leadership, when we walk into a room, there's either people that are looking at you as the leader, right? So people that maybe you're speaking into, right? If you're on a team, if you're a manager or a director or an executive, there's people that report to you. If you're a business owner, then there's people that actually, there's your employees or your clients, that come to you. They're looking at you as a person of influence. Just take it at home. If you're at home, you have your kids or you have people that's coming looking at you. So that's one level, right? Where people are looking at you as being an example, or looking at you as being a leader. And then there's a next level, right? And the next level is where there's peer-to-peer. These are your coworkers, or maybe other business owners, or maybe your spouse at home, or just kind of peer-to-peer. That's a form of leadership also, right? Some people think that's competition. That's not competition. That's not competition. That's actually, when you look at it, you can actually collaborate with your peers, right? You can actually connect with them better. And that's a form of leadership also. And then there's a form of leadership that most people don't even think about, because we just see kind of leadership as being a one-way funnel, but it's really not, because leadership is all about communication, and communication is sending a message, receiving a message. So it's a two-way lane. It's not a one-way funnel. So if there's people that look to us as a leader, then there's also people you look to as a leader. You're looking at somebody as a leader. Even if you're the CEO, you have investors that you report to. You have your clients. That's kind of like your leader, because they're guiding, in a sense, what your next service or program or product is going to be, right? Same thing, even in a atmosphere at church, right? There's your counsel, or there's different things that you're looking at as people that you're looking at as your leaders. And if you don't have that, that's unhealthy. You want to have people that you're looking at, that you're looking as leaders. Like, who are the leaders that you're looking at to follow? You want to have that in your life. It's just a healthy concept. You don't want to be the lonely man at the top of the mountain, because you'll be the only one at the top of the mountain. So you want to have that concept, and you want to have those three it creates a little, like I said, really basic general, where there's people that are looking at you as a leader. That's one. And then there's your peer-to-peer leader. And then there's people that you're looking at as the leader, like you're looking up to them to lead, right? Now, in that quick framework, that really basic quick framework, anytime you walk into a room, you're at one of those points. Any room, any environment you walk into, you're at one of those points. Now, here's the key. Every one of those points, you can be a positive influence. Most people think, when they think positive influence, they just think the people that report to them. Like I said, it's people just think that leadership, it just flows down, and it doesn't. We miss so much of people that we can impact positively if we only think of that, right? Whatever level that is that you're in, when you walk into a room, you can still be a positive influence. You can be a positive influence to your peer-to-peer. You can be a positive influence to your boss or your clients or people that you look to. Maybe it's a coach, a counselor, a pastor, or somebody that you look at, as a leader in your life. You can actually be a positive influence to them. So that's why this concept to me is so foundational. It's so powerful because this doesn't require a special role or special assignment. This is for anyone. Anyone that can walk into a room is going to have this that they can look at. Now, the first thing, where do you start, right? Once we understand that kind of model, when you walk into a room, you're going to be in some way, shape, or form in that area of how you can influence people positively, right? So where you start is, here's the big question. How well do you influence yourself? You see, sometimes we want to be a positive influence in people's lives, and we got to start by saying, how much am I a positive influence in your own life? Like, if you know what to do to reach your health goal, are you doing it? If you know what to do to take some spiritual steps forward that you've been wanting to take, are you doing it? Are you showing up on time if you want to be a person of character? Like, are you doing those things? So we got to start with self leadership. And that might be a tough pill to swallow. That might be, but I like to keep it real. That's the only way to start from. Because if we don't start from there, what happens is that we can look as a person that's not of good character, because we cannot not walk our talk, in a sense, and we don't want to think of that, but we got to walk our talk long, consistently, long enough that when we speak things to people, it's not like foreign, because they see us actually doing it already. So when we're speaking into people's lives, when we're trying to be a positive influence to people's lives, we're telling them something that they see in us already. So it makes sense. It's easy for them to receive that because they already see us being a living example of that, whatever it may be. So the first place to start is a good self leadership focus. We want to look inward. I even tell people, you got to do the inner work. The inner work is a lot of healing. You got to do, you got to go through that. There's different ways to do that, in the details. But for today's topic, we're just talking about just that self leadership focus, right? So I always tell people, the first person you lead is yourself. And that's actually the hardest person to lead. Once we can really get a chance to really lead ourselves well, leading others isn't as challenging as we first think. So start with that, right? And that's the mindset, that's the theory, that's the strategy. Here's the action. Here's how we do that. A very simple thing of how we do that is daily self-checks. Daily self-checks. A form of leadership is being able to be honest with ourselves. Now, when I say honest, honesty has a full concept with it. Okay, so we want to know what's going good in our life. We want to know what we do good, but we also know what we don't do good, like what we messed up on, because we don't want to call it as it is. We don't want to just be so positive and miss the points that we can get better at, right? But we do want to say, okay, this was good, this wasn't good, and how can I get better? Write those questions down if you want to. Write those questions down. 3 powerful questions. This was good, this wasn't good, and how can I get better? So maybe the 3 questions is, what was good in this situation, what wasn't good, and how can I get better? Really easy questions that helps you build a structure to do a self-check. Right? A quick self-check. For myself, I do it in a quick journal at night. When I'm writing down stuff, I like to write things out, because to me, it's not real until I write it. Somebody taught me that a while back. So it's not real until I write it. And if I just think it out loud, sometimes I miss it because it's too easy to do. So I actually stop, I sit down, I open up the book, grab a blue pen. I heard studies that when you write with blue pen, your mind just remembers it more. So I went with it. Hey, do the research if you want to, or just use any color you want. But I heard that blue pens help you remember more. So, okay, the little life hack there for you. But I grab my blue pen, I open up the book, and I just write down, I got the framework already. What was good? what wasn't good, and how can I get better. Really easy framework. Sometimes I go in more in detail, but to start, that's it. That's a good self-check. So we want to make sure, if we want to be a person of positive influence, and we use that dynamic that in any situation you're a positive of you're a person of influence. Let me clear that up. I think I messed it up a little bit. When you walk into any room, we already realize that you are already a person of influence. Remember the structure. Remember that there's people that are looking at you, there's people that you're looking at, and there's your peers, right? So you are already a person of influence. So if we're not intentional of being a positive influence, we can be a negative influence. That's why you want to be intentional to be a positive influence. And how you do that is by starting with yourself. How well do you lead yourself? Did you show up on time? Did you study like how you wanted to study? Did you call that person like you said you were going to call that person? Like, this is the inner work part, but this is the self leadership part, right? We want to learn how to do that in the beginning, and it's going to be a little tough because when you start to do this, you'll realize how much we don't do that. I know that was my case when I first started 10, 15 years ago. I got a chance to really see, like, wow, I actually don't lead myself that well. But the good thing is, once you kind of call it as it is, now you got something you can work from, right? That's your point A. So once you call it as it is, boom, and then you go ahead and you say, okay, these self checks will actually be kind of, look at it in a sense as a polishing stone. Now, I like that imagery with it, because a polishing stone will kind of scratch at the beginning. It's going to break off some of the rough parts of you. It's going to be maybe a little hard to look at, but eventually the surface is nice and smooth and has a good shine. So look at it and look at it like for yourself. Like, in the beginning, you might have to do some self checks on some parts that might be a little tough. But here's the thing: is when we're consistent with it and we keep doing those self checks, that part that was once kind of rough will start to shine. And that shine, I mean, you can go back to the whole thing, like, let your light shine when you go out, right? But to get a shine, you got to kind of rub off a little bit of that rough part. But when you stay consistent and you keep at it, eventually it starts to shine. And then leadership and then influence isn't something so tough, like you got to do a 20-page business plan or something. No, because it's who you are, right? That's the powerful thing of this foundation when you start with self-leadership, right? It's not an on and off switch. It's something of who you are. So when you're sharing with people to do things, they're already seeing you doing it, and it's easier for them to do it, right? And you can speak from a place of integrity and you can be genuine with it. So that's where you want to start to be a person of positive influence. A quick recap. Remember, when you walk into any room, we want to be intentional, because no matter what the role, no matter what the situation, no matter work, home, no matter what it is, church, whatever it is for you, any situation you walk into, there's three different influence levels going on. And there's people that you influence that are looking at you as a leader. There's your peer-to-peer situation. And then there's people that you're looking up at, that you're looking at them as leadership. So when you walk into there, you fall into one of those levels. The next part is, where do you start? You start with self-leadership. How well do you listen to your own advice? How well do you follow through on things that you ask of others? Do I practice what I post? Do I practice what I preach, right? Those are things you want to follow with that self-leadership. And a very actionable thing you can do. I got a team of people that's actually going ahead and doing this for a 7-day challenge. So if you want to do that, challenge yourself for 7 days, 1 week. Just pick one time at the end of the day, or it can be any time of the day, but pick one time when you're actually going to do a quick self-check. I'd say use a journal, because I really believe it's not real until it's written. But hey, if you don't want to do that, just do the self-check for 7 days. Go ahead and ask yourself 3 questions. What went good? What went bad, and how can they get better? And you'll notice that as you continue to be intentional with growing, as you become more, you'll be able to give more and serve more. That's it for now for today. Go ahead, and we set up some really cool stuff for everybody to leave some feedback. If you go to JM Leadership Group for Instagram, or just follow my personal page, which is Jordan BP Mossman. Right there, you can get on my personal page for Instagram. It's at the handle Jordan BP Mossman. And if you go on the link the Linktree link. It'll open up and there'll be a voice message. You can leave me a voice message there telling me what you thought about this episode here. You can actually set up a text me button there. And when I release new episodes, I'll actually send it to that select group for the text me. If you hit text me, just text it podcast. And what I'll do is every time I release a new one, I'll send it to you guys first. And that's it for now. We'll got more things coming up in the months ahead, some powerful interviews and stuff. But that's today's episode. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for being interested in being a person of positive influence. With that being said, we'll wrap up today's session.